Welcome in to another episode of Odd Man Rush. I'm Will Highland. I'm joined by Kyle Diezel. As always, hope you're all having a great MLK day and long weekend, beginning of your week, end of your week, beginning of your next weekend, whatever you're doing, whenever you're listening. We're glad you tuned in to this episode of Odd Man Rush. It's been since before Christmas that we recorded, so we're happy to get to you in January here. And because January 20th was such a slow news day, we decided to dive in and talk about some NHL ins and outs for you. So, Kyle, before we get going, we need a weather report.
Oh, we got a decent amount of snow from the snowstorm we got kind of like last night, late evening. So I'd say about mm, probably a couple inches, nothing too crazy, maybe
Couple.
a couple,
Okay.
like two.
How's the wind? What's the temp?
The high today was like 18. For the rest of the week, I think it's gonna be like single digits, teens. It's
Yeah,
not pleasant.
same here. So, when I snowblowed this morning, my driveway, the real field temperature was like 2. The actual temp was like 14 or 15, but with the wind, apparently it felt like 2. So that was not fun. Um, but so goes it, I suppose. Here we are in January, and we're well past the holiday break for the NHL, and we're well past Thanksgiving. Most teams, now that the Lightning, I believe, have played their 44th game or 43rd game, they were lagging. I think every team has played more than half their schedule at this point. So we have a good grasp on what the NHL playoff race looks like, what the trade deadline could look like, who might be buying, who might be selling, and who's in the middle. Um, Kyle, this has been a strange year. Um, I mean, we last time we talked about the decline of the Rangers. We talked about the ascension of some other teams, like the Blue Jackets are having a good year, surprisingly. Um, talked about the Blackhawks still struggling, the Predators struggling, the Bruins, of course, the Devils rebounding, your team rebounding from a disappointing meddling year last year to be at the top of, or near the top, that is. The Capitals rebounding, having a great season. They're the best team in the league right now. Um, so there's a lot going on in the league, but you told me before we recorded that you had some power rankings. So I want to hear those because, as I mentioned, we are more than halfway through the year now, so we have a good grasp of what the league looks like. So, what does the league look like to you, East and West?
What do you want first? You want the East? Or you want?
Let's start with the West.
All right. So for the West, I'll start from number five and work my way up. I have the Knights at number five. I know
All
they're
right.
I know they're top of their division, but they're on the skid right now. I know they're have won the Stanley Cup. They're looking like the former Stanley Cup team, but they're a little bit of a skid. So I got to put them at number five. Dallas having a huge improvement. They've been a steady team all year. Andrews playing phenomenal. So that team's doing well. Oilers, they're on I think a 7 game win streak, something like that. One had I think like 9 out of their last 12 games. So they're on a huge streak right now. And then, of course, I've got the Wild. I mean, we talk about the Wild all the time being that team that's up and down. This year, they're finding their stride. So, right now, through midseason, I have them at my number two. And, of course, we have the Jets at number one. They are just playing phenomenal. Uh, Hollaback is playing out of his mind the way he's going. He could win the MVP this year the way he's going. He could be the second most
Yes.
Carey Price to win it, I think. So, he keep
Yeah, Carey Price, possibly 2014, maybe.
I think so. Whenever they went to the Stanley Cup, I think is when they.
Well, that wasn't him that year, 2020. I thought they did.
Maybe it's 2018, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it was in that 5-year period.
But that is my West Coast
Yeah.
power rankings for top five right now.
All right, I like it. The Jets have been great, and if you're an American hockey fan like we both are, then you got to be super excited that Hellebuck is going to be in net for us in a few weeks when we do the Four Nations face-off. I'm really happy about that. So good for us that we've got Hellebuck. You mentioned You mentioned the Wild. That was a team. I was really wrong about the Minnesota Wild in the beginning of the year. Like, there's so many things I was wrong about. I thought they might bottom out because I didn't think their
Yeah,
roster was very deep, but they've had emergence of this other group of players, like mostly Brock Faber, and he had been hurt for a little bit, but he's been so good for them. And Kaprizov, we know about. He's a Hart candidate as well. Joel Eriksson Ek was also hurt for a little bit, but they they have gotten past a lot of their injury problems, and they've just been playing really well. And so yeah, I like Minnesota as well. Edmonton, I think you had them at three. Uh,
yep,
Edmonton's strange, man. Like they're streaky,
correct.
but right now they're so hot. And if you don't mind, I kind of want to dive in quickly. The Bouchard, McDavid penalty, possible suspension drama, all these hits and all these things in the retaliation, whatnot. I'm not privy to a lot of what's going on, but if there's, I think to me, it's like, tell me what you know, if or tell me what you think. If there's anything that will derail the Oilers, it's themselves.
Oh no, you're 100% correct on that.
Yeah,
Kind of, and we know we've seen Connor McDavid be similar to being very aggressive at times, but we don't see that often. But he let him get under his skin, and I think for the Oilers, like you just said, it's up to them to get in their own way. I mean, look what happened when they went to the Stanley Cup; they got in their own way in Game 7. For them,
yeah,
that's really what it comes down to is them getting in their own way. And going forward, there will be suspensions coming out of this. I do think the officials should have got a better control of this game. They missed a few calls to go into this, but also it's going to happen. It happens at times, especially when you're trying to defend your best player. So they're going to stand up for him. But like I said, they should have got a grasp, but the Oilers should also not let these guys get in their heads. The Canucks downfall this current year, not as good as they did last year, but they let them get to their heads.
yeah. And let's see how they respond to some adversity. Because I think the Oilers are a lot like the Leafs of the West, right? And maybe somebody, if you're listening, in Canada, I'm not trying to oversimplify the Canadian element here, but like they are in such a vacuum in Edmonton, and the media, the hockey media, was pumping them up all summer, like despite their Stanley Cup loss, and I think the um the pressure on them is immense on the Oilers to win a cup is incredible pressure. I know I can't think of a team in recent NHL history, call it the last 10 years, that has had that much pressure on them to win a Stanley Cup that year. I mean, I can think of of a lot of teams that have won multiple cups in the last, quarter century, like the Penguins or the Kings or the Blackhawks or something. But I cannot think of a team with as much pressure on them to win as Edmonton does this year. And so, yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking. Now, Vegas, who is your four? You had Vegas at five and
Dallas, number
Dallas. Vegas and Dallas they're gonna be right there. They've got the
yeah,
top level talent. I think Sagan's been hurt. Um, but the Stars, look, I mean, they've whipped the Bruins twice. I've watched them. Their offense is as good as anybody's, and they've got great goaltending. Um, so and the Knights are the same way. The Knights, if Hill is on, they're on, and that whole team is on, and Cassidy's got them going. You're right, they're on a little bit of a skid, but yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you on those top five. I can't think of it. I mean, Vancouver has really started to dip. That was another team we were really high on. Um, and I'm trying to think about the rest of the league. St. Louis had their bump after Montgomery. Calgary has sort of been weathering. Seattle, meh, not great. I can't think of anybody else really in the West that would be pushing that group that you mentioned. So great. I mean, it's going to be a fun knockdown out
yeah.
there.
No, I think the only thing is I think the East is going to be more interesting to watch out for that wild card spot than the West. I think it's up
Yeah.
to three
So
teams in the West, and the East it's almost every team still in it.
Yeah, pretty much everybody but the
Oh,
Sabres, I'd say. I mean,
yeah,
honestly, everyone but the I would say even like the Red Wings or
yeah, they're still in it. I mean,
the
they're
Red Wings are in it. The Islanders aren't that far out. I mean, like, it's pretty much everyone but the Islanders and Sabres probably, if I'm being realistic. But so yeah, give me your East now then.
yeah,
I'm interested to see how you rank this because I do think it's clear there's a clear one.
yeah. No, there's a clear one.
All right.
There's probably a clear number two. I think it kind of goes up from three, four, and five. So for five right now, I have the Canes. They're doing great, phenomenally. I have Tampa number four. They're starting to find their stride. Very high power offense. Great goaltending currently. Panthers, reigning champs. They're going through a little bit of their slump of winning, losing. It happens. Number two, I have the Leafs. Leafs are just playing phenomenally right now. And then, of course, number one, the best team in the NHL right now, the Caps. It's not even disputable.
Yeah. It's crazy how good Washington's been. And I think Washington is an example. And I've been saying this for a long time on our shows, but back before we launched this particular show, I've been saying it. I've been beating this drum for a long time. You do not have to rebuild in the NHL. You do not have to do it. It does not have to happen. You don't actually have to rebuild in any sport. The Capitals knew they had good players. They knew they had a Hall of Fame, no doubt, of course, superstar, one of the greatest to ever play. And they said, we're going to get this guy Wayne Gretzky's record. And along the way, we're actually going to win games. And they believed and took some risks. They went out and got guys to complement their team. Connor McMichael has played really well for them. Pierre-Luc Dubois, a lot of people were saying, I don't want anything to do with that guy. He's found a home there. The rest of that team, I mean, they still have John Carlson, who I think is another borderline Hall of Famer by the end of his career. And so they were like, we've got good players. We believe in Ryan Lindgren, or is that his name? What's their goalie's name? Charlie Lindgren? Ryan Lindgren plays for the
Something like
Rangers.
that. Something
I think
similar.
it's Charlie Lindgren. Ryan Lindgren plays for the Rangers. But anyway, you understand what I'm saying. They believed that they had good players, and they're like, we just need to add a few things on the periphery, have a few draft picks that make sense, believe in some younger guys like Trevor Van Riemsdyk, who's not, I mean, not incredibly young, but hasn't always been looked at as a top defenseman in the game, and they just believed in their team and they didn't overreact to one season where they were barely making the playoffs. Like last year, it would have been very easy for them. They got bounced by, was it the Rangers in 4 games? And it would have been very easy for them to say, oh, you know what, we need to blow it up. We're just not good. We're too old. Now look at them. They're the best team in the league. So yeah, I agree with you there. The Leafs have been playing really well. I think they've gotten a lot out of Joseph Wall. I think their defensive structure is way better than it has been in recent years. Um, and they've withstood injuries to guys like Matthews. And they've got Mitch Marner in a contract year, and he's motivated. So I think that plays a huge part of it too. Otherwise, Carolina, I thought Carolina wasn't going to be like a President's Trophy competitor this year. That's maybe why you have them at 5, but they're still not a bad team. I don't
Correct.
want to play them in the playoffs. Who else do you have? You had
Reigning Cup, the reigning champs, the Panthers.
yes, you had the Florida teams. So Tampa has they're gonna play a lot of hockey because they're lagging behind in games played, but they've showed that they can compete with anybody on any given night, and the Panthers haven't lost a step either. So, yeah, I mean the East, those top 5 are where they are. Now it's going to be interesting because I think all 5 of those are playoff locks. Then you also have the Devils, who I would say at this point, barring a disaster, are playoff locks. So that leaves 2 teams left to make it in the Eastern Conference. And without looking at the standings, I can name the Bruins, Blue Jackets, Penguins, Senators, Rangers, um, I named five. I think there's more. I can't think of any more. Do you have the standings in front of you? Those are just the first
I do
five I thought of.
current playoff standings.
Red Wings.
So right now we have it as the 1 2 are tied. So the games to play, it goes to Ottawa, and then the Bruins have the number 1 and 2 spots, followed by Columbus at 51, Montreal at 50,
Montreal, yeah.
Rangers and Flyers at 48, Detroit at 46, Pittsburgh also at 46, the Islanders at 43, and Buffalo at 39. So
Yeah,
that's
so I think like I said when we started this conversation, I think
Buffalo and
every
Islanders are kind of on the outside, but like still, that's what 1 2 3 4
that's
5
like 11 points out.
eight teams fighting for 2 spots.
Yeah, I mean pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, if you're 11 points out, I think that's too much, but if you're like 6 points out, like a lot of them are or less, with games in hand on somebody like the Bruins or the Senators, then that. I mean, think about how bad Montreal and Pittsburgh felt at Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
People were talking about trading Crosby at around before Thanksgiving.
I know.
And then likewise, Montreal looked like they were going to compete for the lottery around, you know, Veterans Day or Halloween. Like within the first few weeks of the season, you're like another year of Montreal. Montreal has a better points percentage than the Bruins, than the Senators, I believe, because I think both have games in hand on. They have games in hand on both of them.
Yeah,
I think.
Bruins have at all wild card teams. Bruins have a game or two on all the other teams.
Right, and that's the Bruins. Unfortunately, their issue is they've allowed themselves to get in this position because they've dropped a lot of points. They've had a lot of regulation wins that have become overtime losses or overtime losses that could have been overtime wins and things like that. But at the same time, why I still think the Bruins should go for it is you've got games against the Senators this week. You've got two games against the Lightning. You've got games against the Devils. You have games against the Penguins still left to go, and you've done well in your games against the Flyers. You swept them, so it's like you have the opportunity in front of you to go win uh, games against playoff teams. And so these games in hand don't necessarily mean anything if those teams can't beat you when you play them. So it's like that's how the rest, and that goes for every team. Like if you're Montreal, you can go beat the Sharks. Like the Bruins beat the Sharks today. That's great. Those are points. But you really have to beat the teams ahead of you. So Montreal, they can go beat the Flames or whomever, but they
Western
have to
West don't matter too much. You got to beat those in the East.
you have to beat your teams in the East because that's where the games in hand matters. You can't treat it like a game in hand against nobody because those games in hand are against other teams. So unless you win those games, this playoff race is going to come down to when those teams play one another.
Mhm. No,
So it's going to be fun, and like it's not. It's not one of those years like remember the COVID bubble year where like you were playing the same teams over and over and over and
yeah,
over and over. And it was like I think I think the Devils and Bruins were in the same division and that year. And it was like four teams made it, four teams didn't. Boom, boom, boom. And it was kind of like not fun because by the end of it, like the last week of the season, everyone kind of knew who was making the playoffs.
yeah.
I think this is going to go down to like the last
I think it might go all the way down to the end. If this
kind of
could,
like 2023 did. Like, remember, this is what I tell the Bruins fans who are like, oh, like Pete Blackburn runs a podcast. He's on Twitter all the time. You know, he does What Chaos. He's a great guy, good NFL NHL reporter. He said today on the podcast he doesn't want the Bruins to make the playoffs. I think he doesn't want them to think that everything's okay with the roster, and I get it if that's his argument. But like the Florida Panthers in 2023 were barely got in. They barely got in. And then they went on to, go to a cup final. So it's like
yeah,
you don't know. The Oilers looked like trash last year. They in the fall and they ended up making the cup final. So it's like you don't know in hockey. So the best thing you can do is just get to the dance.
yeah.
That's all it takes. You got to get your ticket punched, you know? Next thing you know, you're dancing with Gal Gadot at the prom, instead of at home watching, reruns of Seinfeld. I mean, that's what you have to do if you want to win the cup. You have to make it to the dance. So, I digress. So, Kyle, we had some fun stuff planned for the
Mhm.
program. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with, just so our listeners, this is what we call in the business a tease. Kyle likes, he's a bachelor. He likes to chase. So we're gonna give you a little bit of a tease here. So we've got three fun categories picked. We have our top 10 hated sports teams across all sports and levels, not just the NHL. We have our all-star team of NHL players who are born in our birthday month. And Kyle, that's in honor of your birthday over the weekend. I hope it was a good one, despite the Rams loss. And then the last category we had was the Would You Rather NHL themed. So do you want to start with the hockey stuff, or do you want to start with the top 10 sports hate? Because I was just talking about the Panthers.
Let's keep it hockey. Let's keep it hockey here. Let's do the would you rather, then go to the lineups, and then go to the hated teams at
All
the end.
right, sounds good. So do you want to start with your question? Do you want me to go first with my question?
I'll go with my question first.
All
So
right.
my question is, well, we know we just had an expansion a few years ago. Would you rather see another expansion here in the United States, or would you rather see an expansion in Canada?
All right. I'm thinking here.
And if
I would
so,
say I would say Canada. And the reason is because Seattle already has a team, and that was really the only North American US market that was missing a team that probably could really support one from a fan base model. I don't mean from a monetary model, because I think Utah is doing their best with their relocation, and I think Houston would get people to go to the games. I also think Kansas City would get people to go to the games or what have you. But, I think putting a team in Quebec City or a team in Halifax, Nova Scotia would, I mean, it wouldn't make the league a lot of money because the Canadian dollar is poo-poo. But it would be fun for fans. So that's my answer. I go Canada. What's your thing?
gosh, I think Canada would be. I don't know. I think Quebec City could use it. Um, that's where I would put it. It has to be Canada. We've already had two in the United States. So you got to add another one up north, I think, just to make it even. I mean, you know how much they love hockey up there, so might as well just add one up there.
Yeah. Like if Buffalo didn't have a team, yeah. I would have contemplated Cleveland, but here's the issue. You've got Columbus, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Buffalo, all with teams in that same area. That's kind of too much in one place Ohio, you really have to, if you're worried about, like, an American market would make money. And, but you really got to put it in Canada if you want it's like Quebec City would go wild. A second Toronto team would be wild too. So, yeah, I think we're both in agreement there. Okay, so mine's a similar question. If you were a free agent and you could play for any team, but not your favorite team, who are you playing for? You can't play for the Devils. If you were a free agent, let's say you graduated from, some prep school in Vermont and you were a 4-star, 5-star recruit, you played a year at, UVM and you're getting drafted. You're gonna go play somewhere. Or
Oh,
or you got drafted, you played at UVM, now you're going to the league. Where are you going? Can't be the Devils.
that's tough. Uh, I've always had two in mind. Recently, I would say the Knights, but I definitely would not want to go to Vegas. So that's the reason why I wouldn't pick them. Uh, Probably Tampa or the Panthers, just because it'd be somewhere nice and warm. That's the reason why. I know there's not supposed to be hockey down where it's warm, but I think it'd just be fun to play somewhere where I go play hockey somewhere nice and cold inside, then step outside and just warm right up. I mean, just go right to the beach a few steps away. I think that's where I would go.
All right, and no state income tax in the great
Yeah.
state of Florida. The great state of Florida. Yes. Okay. This one I thought about for a long time. Because, sentimentally, I would say Calgary because I have family there and I love that city. It's a great city. It's not a great city in January. I've been there in July. So, like, it's very easy to say, yeah, I would love to live here in July when it's 75 with like no humidity. Issue is hockey season is not in July. So, as much as I love Calgary, I'm gonna have to say no to Calgary. I would say Smashville, Nashville. And the reason why I say Nashville is like Calgary, I also have family in Tennessee.
Mhm.
And more importantly, from a hockey standpoint, I mean, personal stuff aside, I love that building. Um, so like family, awesome, important, but from a hockey standpoint, since that was the question, it wasn't like where you wanted to live, it was like who would you want to play for? Um, I want to live in Nashville regardless, but I think if I was a hockey player, I'd want to live in Nashville and be a part of that fan base. Because when they were in the Cup final several years ago against the Penguins, it was incredible, and they have a great home ice advantage. They're not playing that well this year, but that's also a great city if you want to go out too, like on Broadway and stuff. So I say Nashville, you say Tampa, Florida. All right, I like that. I'll throw this out to you, and then you'll do a double for me.
Okay.
Um, I'll throw this out. Would you rather be a defenseman or a forward?
To be honest, I've always wanted to be a goaltender. No idea why. There's
Interesting.
Um, that's where I've always wanted to be, just because I grew up with the great Marty Brodeur
Yeah,
and
I was gonna
met.
say I'm blowing a whistle on that one. I know why. It's because you grew up a Devils fan with Marty Brodeur.
But if I did, I don't know. I feel like being a forward would be awesome, but I feel like I'd also like to be like Scott Stevens and just, I lived a different time growing up where it was big and physical, so that's how I would always see myself as an undersized individual. But I don't know. I feel like I would never be a forward. I don't think I'd be able to. I think a defenseman or goalie would be my way.
I don't know, dude. I've watched you play football and basketball, and so I do think you're agile enough to be a skater.
So I could be.
Um,
You're telling me
what was that?
I could be Luke Hughes.
That's right. And well, I think maybe the Panthers are looking for a goaltender post Bob, but I think the Lightning are all set. The Nashville Predators could use some help on defense. Problem is I'm 5'9". Um, so I I would probably I'd probably have to be a forward. Um, but yeah, I mean Cole Caulfield, we were just talking about Montreal. He's not extremely big. So you know, Brad Marchand isn't big. So like I'd probably have to be a forward. All right, how about you hit me
My next one.
with yours? Yeah.
You could go. Not really a would you rather, but it's if you go back in time to any game or watch any player, who would you go back and see, in what game, and why?
Well, I think I can do both. Uh, I would go back and I'd watch the last Stanley Cup game I watched of the Bruins in on TV was against the St. Louis Blues and it was horrible. So I would go back to this 19 I believe it was the 1970 Stanley Cup against the St. Louis Blues where Bobby Orr had his game-winning goal and he flew into the air. So I would not only get to see Bobby Orr, but I'd get to see the rest of the 1970s Bruins that my dad grew up watching and being a fan of, albeit 3,000 miles away. Uh, and I would get to see Phil Esposito, Johnny Busick, Jerry Cheevers, uh, John McKenzie, all those guys. Um, while also seeing that game and that historic moment in Boston sports history. So that's a no-brainer for me. Um, and my second question wasn't a, or my first question wasn't a, would you rather anyway. So I'll let that slide. It's not, I mean, it's our show, Kyle. We can make it up. What about you?
I don't have a specific time or a game I want to go see, but I'd love to have gone back and see Wayne Gretzky play in his prime just to see like how he was like skill wise everyone else versus like today. Like be like in there, take the breath, like kind of like Crosby has been, kind of like Connor McDavid, um, and all of them, current superstars. But what was he back then compared to today? Like, is he what he was? Like, were athletes today him, or is he just that much better? Is he literally Michael Jordan? Is he better than what Michael Jordan was? Like for the NBA, is he literally just that athlete? Like that
I think
separated?
so. I think if you ask anybody, like if you asked our dads or anybody that was like cognizant when he was playing hockey, he transcended hockey the same way Tiger Woods transcended golf, same way Michael Jordan transcended basketball. Um, I think Wayne Gretzky is synonymous with hockey, the um, same way all those other guys are synonymous, excuse me, with their sports, like Babe Ruth in baseball. I think he's or among that echelon of players for sure. So yeah, totally, totally good. I mean, it I can't argue with that. So I mean, I think my example was a little more sentimental and Bruins and family related, but yeah, I mean, I go with that of course as well. Hit me with your last question here.
All right, are you ready?
Oh, I'm born
Would
ready.
Would you rather see one of your most hated teams win the Stanley Cup or see the Bruins win a Stanley Cup every 25 years?
So Bruins win a Stanley Cup. So in your case, it would be the Devils, but in my case, it would be the Bruins. Okay. Bruins win a Stanley Cup every 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just talked about the 70s Bruins. They won in 72, and then they didn't win again until 11, so that's 39 years. And then it's already been 14.
Yeah.
So is this like a retroactive, like they win a cup in 11 years from now, or do I have to wait 25 years from now?
No, it'll be 11 years.
Okay, so if I had to wait 11 years, I've already waited 14. Yeah.
Okay.
Because, like, if the Leafs or the Canadians, I might have just buried the lead here on one of our later segments. If they won a Stanley Cup, that would suck. Um, but yeah, I mean, I could go for, yeah, 25 years. If the Leafs and Canadians never won us another Stanley Cup, but I had to wait 25 years in between Bruins Stanley Cups, I'd make that trade.
Okay.
Yeah. Because let's say, okay, they win a Stanley Cup when I think I was 14, 15. I forget how old I was. Um, okay, they win it again when I'm 40, call it. Then they win it again when I'm 65. All right. One as a kid, one as a middle-aged guy, one as an old guy, and then if I live to be 90, I can die with the Bruins Stanley Cup. So, yeah, I'm good with that. Four in a
All right.
lifetime. Look, I've had four Red Sox World Series championships in my lifetime. My grandfather was born and died in between the 86 years that they didn't win. So it's like uh I'm okay. Like I can't complain about any of that stuff. The Patriots have won six Super Bowls in my life, all six of them. So yeah, I can't complain about any of that stuff. I'll go 25 years.
Okay.
What about you?
Uh, I don't think I could wait 25 years, so I would have to probably say I wouldn't be able to wait 25 years. So I would just hope that my teams could pull it out, but I can't. I can't wait 25 years. That's too long for me. I don't know how you can.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I'm sticking with my gut. All right, here's my last one. And we brought up these two guys already. So this is awesome. I did not plan this. This is great. All right. You're playing around to golf.
hmm
You can only have one guy in the cart with you.
Yeah.
Is it Wayne or is it Marty?
Oh, yeah, one in the car. Probably gotta be Marty. I could have the all-time great. Well, mm,
So, if your dad was with you in the other cart and he was on Bird on your shoulder, I think he'd probably say Brodeur.
yeah, I know, but I've met Brodor, so I probably
Oh,
say
he's met him already. Okay,
I
well,
go I,
forget my question then.
I go Gretzky. I've already met Marty, so I have met Gretzky, so I go Gretzky.
Okay, yeah, Gretzky would chirp you, I think.
That's totally fine. I'm sure he would bring the chirp.
Is he? I wonder if he's a lefty shot. I've never, because I know you are.
I don't know. I think he a lefty. I don't know if I can't remember if he was a lefty.
I can't remember. Yeah. Well, he might be a right shot in golf. Um, anyway, okay, so my answer to this question isn't really, I'm not a big devil, I was not a Devils fan, but
Well,
if you were to make it Bobby Orr or Wayne Gretzky, I mean, like to go back and use the example I gave. Um,
I
I
would have
mean,
said Tim.
Tim, Tim Thomas. I think Tim Thomas and I would get along really well, but that's a subject for another day. I think Tim Thomas, the pride of UVM. I think I'd get along pretty well with Tim Thomas. I don't think he'd want to play golf with me though. But that's not the question. If it's Tim Thomas or Bobby Orr, I'm 1,000% going Bobby Orr. And then from there, if it's Wayne Gretzky or Bobby Orr, I mean that's a coin flip, um, for me. So yeah, I don't. And if it's Wayne Gretzky or Tim Thomas, it's Wayne Gretzky. So I don't know. I'm kind of weaseling around the question there, but it was intended for you, not me, so I didn't really think that through. Okay, where do you want to go now? Do you want to go line? You want to go lineups, and then we're gonna end with.
Yeah, we do Linus. No, do the hated teams.
All right, and give me your lineup. I want to hear since we're in January and it's your belated birthday. I want to know your
Do you
lineup
want my?
first.
I'll save my forwards for last.
Yep, start with. I would say start with defense and goalie, and then do forwards. Yeah.
So for my defenseman, probably my weakest point of the month. I got John Carlson, and
Okay.
then I got Brian Suter. My two
Not
defensemen.
terrible.
No, I have a divide on goaltenders. Depend which one's hotter at the time. I got Dominic Hasek / Jonathan Quick.
You go Dominic Hasek, but yeah, I didn't know we were doing backup goalies.
I
I've
just
got.
had I had a hard time. I mean, I was gonna go Dominic, but just in case I needed one. My forwards might be a little unfair.
Oh, sorry. We should have prefaced this. This is all time, just so everyone knows. I think you can figure out from Diesel's first few picks there. This is all time players that share our birthday month.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're right. Forwards.
Yeah.
Uh, Current player Connor McDavid. And I got Mark Messier.
Okay.
And
Yikes. That's tough. Those are like two of the top five players of all time.
well, my last one is Wayne Gretzky.
No way. You've got
Yep,
three of the top like five players of all time in your.
that's what I said. I was gonna go forwards first. I'll take everything else as an L, but my forwards undefeated.
Well, I think your team's pretty good. They're just not going to be able to defend. So, I mean, they might put up six. They might put up six, but I don't know if they're going to put up six on my goalie. Um, so, okay, here's what we've got. I was born in July, and I don't know if a lot of hockey moms and dads are knocking boots in October, but I've got a lot of great stuff to pick from as well. Something about October and April being the beginning and end of the season. I'm just gonna let you all do the math after that. We both ended up with great
Mm-hmm.
players. I don't know if it's written in the stars. But here we are. I'm gonna stop talking about that. I'm gonna move on because you came here for hockey, not family planning. But we've got we've got on my July team is just incredible. I mean, maybe not as good. My forwards maybe not as good as yours, because I think you have three of like the top five or six ever. I was afraid you were gonna say like McDavid, Messier, and Mario, and then you ripped off Gretzky, and I was like, oh, okay. No wonder you wanted to change it from birthday to birthday month because
Uh,
January. The original plan, everyone, was to go on your birthday, a list of like the best athletes that share your birthday. I'm glad we didn't do that because mine were terrible. Um, Overall. Okay, I'll start with my goaltender. I'm
mhm.
going Andrei Vasilevsky, two-time Stanley Cup winner. Uh,
Okay.
in backup, in case he's got a sports hernia or something, I'm going Ryan Miller, silver
Ooh.
medalist. Ryan Miller, future Hall of Famer if he's not one already. All right, so those are who I've got in net. Another active player in Vasilevsky. On the back end, I've got two Hall of Famers. I've got Brad Park and Al McInnes, both rank in the top 20 in points in their careers all time, and they're both defensemen. So, and they can defend. Al McInnes, Calgary Flame great, and Brad Park, who I forget what team he plays for. I was not alive when he played, but he was a beast. So I've got two Hall of Fame defensemen. So we're stopping some of your guys, I think. Um, Now this is where it got fun because I had a lot of good forwards I could pick from, especially wingers and centers. Oh, sorry, right wingers and centers. But I decided to go with on my left side, uh, Jerome McGinley, who I believe is a left shot. If he's not, then he's playing his off wing. So I've got a sniper and
Mhm.
playmaker on my left side. Um, Jerome McGinley, we're gonna feed him the puck. Down the middle, I've got Joe Sakic, uh,
Oh,
one of the
okay.
best players of all time, who's very underrated. Won a Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche. Um,
Well,
and on my right, moving him over to right wing, I had to do this. I've got Patrice Bergeron, the Bruin great. I think he's won six Selke Awards, so we're gonna play a good full 200-foot game. Um, the only issue with July is I don't think we're gonna have much ice. But I think if we matched up head to head, I like my chances. You got the offensive firepower, but I think I got a well balanced team with a stud goaltender net that's won some Stanley Cups. And I got Al McInnes and Brad Park, who I think, other than Ray Bork or Bobby Orr,
mhm.
I can't think of that. I can't think of defensemen. I mean, I can't think of any other defenseman
No.
that really matches those two guys in like off the top of my head. But none of those guys, Bobby Orr and Ray Bork, weren't born in July, so I got what I had. So I don't know. Everyone, you can let us know what you think. But Kyle, I think your team would have wiped the floor with me had your defenseman been slightly better.
Yeah, I mean, I think if our defense were slightly better, but we got a great goaltender in net here. And then I don't know if you guys can keep up with our speed is my only thing. We might drop. It's gonna be, can you guys keep up with our points scored? It's gonna be the main thing if that
Yeah.
happens.
So like, I also had. So this is wild. Al McInnes played
Hmm.
almost 1,500 games, and he has 1,200 career points.
Wow.
Uh, and he ranks seventh all time of July birthdays in career points. And they were both of my defensemen were in the top 20 of July birthdays in points. So like I took every NHL player who was born July, filtered them by highest to lowest points scored. Joe Sakic was number one. Joe Thornton, I almost put on my team, former Bruin, but I had to put Patrice Bergeron on my team because I wanted that 200-foot game. I didn't know I was going to be going up against Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier and Connor McDavid, but didn't think that was happening. But I'm glad I had Brad Park and Al McInnes and Patrice Bergeron on my team. I also had Jamie Benn, Joe Pavelski, Dallas Star greats. I also had New
Mm.
Jersey Devil and fellow American hero Zach Parise on my team,
There we
or on my potential. I have Peter Forsberg, Ted Lindsay, Claude Lemieux, um, Mark Savard. I mean it was Duncan Keith. It was hard. It was hard. And my goaltenders, dude, like I had um let's see, who did I have? I had filtered by save percentage. Wildly enough, I had Linus Allmark as a possible Cam Talbot, Robin Leonard, John Gibson. I had a lot of active guys. Jordan Binnington. So I had a lot to choose from, but I went with Miller and Vasilevsky.
go.
I don't know. I think you'd probably in a skills competition, I wouldn't even be close. But I like Iggy. I got Iggy on my left wing. He was very underrated. If he played for like the Rangers or the Red Wings or something rather than the Flames for most of his career, I think he would have got a lot more exposure and and kind of been appreciated a little bit more by Americans. But gold
No,
medal winners: Patrice Bergeron, Jerome McGinley. Good. That was fun. That was a good. All
that was
right. Do we want to do sports hate? Do we want to do it with you reading your full list and me reading my full list, or do we want to like both read our tens and then go down to our nines and then at the same time? What do you think is better?
doesn't bother me. I mean, I don't really have like a. The hard part was I don't have like 10 teams I hated was the issue. I have more of like a top five that I've hated more than others. It's kind of like how my list is set up.
See, I tried to include like college teams. I included a high school team in there. Sorry, I've been out of high school for 10 years, but I can't bury the hatchet. But yeah, I kind of struggled. I had a lot of NFL in there. Um, but how about we just read our full list and then
Okay.
we'll dissect it after. You can start with yours, I
All
suppose,
right.
since I
Do you want me to
just went through my.
bottom? Let me go from number
No,
one now.
start at 10. Yeah, let's start at 10.
All right. Number 10, I got the Cardinals, the NFL
Which
team, of course.
Cardinals?
The NFL
Okay.
Cardinals, not baseball team. Number nine, I've got the Yankees, of
Okay.
course. And then after that, I've got the Braves. Mostly baseball, getting the baseball ones out of the way quickly. Then I've got, of course, the Phillies. You got to hate the Phillies as a Mets fan. It just has to happen. After that, I've got the Ducks,
Yep.
just because of the Stanley Cups.
Yep,
And
that's
then
right. I think about those early 2000s years. Yeah.
number five, I have the Capitals. I can interchange the Capitals and the Ducks. It's just how depends
Yep.
on. Number four, I would put the Seahawks.
Okay.
Number three would be the 49ers, just because the 49ers have had more success recently than the Seahawks. Once again, interchangeable. My two and one do not change. That's just stays where they are. Number two, we have the Rangers. And then, of course, number one's the Flyers.
So you went NHL heavy. Um, so yeah, for those of you who don't know, Kyle is a Mets fan, a Rams fan, a Devils fan, and basketball.
Yeah, I don't really have.
Yeah, I know. Like it's hard for me. I'm not a big NBA guy. But that okay, that's a solid list. I knew you were probably going to go Rangers top three. I didn't expect Flyers one, but that makes sense now, the jersey thing. I like Mets, a lot of Mets stuff. The Mets have a lot of great rivalries with the Braves, the Phillies, and whatnot. Um, that was good. Um, Yankees as well. And then Seahawks and Rams is a good rivalry. I'm surprised you didn't have the 49ers on there.
I did. I had Niners up there. I had them on. I named them before.
Oh,
I
shoot.
said
Yeah,
them.
that's right. Okay, yeah, you did. Sorry. I was thinking you had the full NFC West on there. You just hate them all, except for the Rams, and then you had the basically almost the full NL East on there, except the Marlins,
Yeah, I don't really care less about the Marlins because they're the
and then
Marlins.
you had no NBA, and then you had the Rangers and Ducks and
Capitals.
Flyers and
Yep.
Capitals.
Capitals, Rangers, Flyers.
So you had like four. Yeah, okay. So that was a pretty all-encompassing list. You were very division centric. I like that.
Yeah, I
All right,
put
I'm
some
going off
honorable.
the board. I'm going off the board.
Let's go off the board. Let's hear it.
So I really wanted to put the Houston Astros at 10 because as a Red Sox fan, like they beat us in like 2017 and then again in like 2021, and it'd be very easy, and they had all that stuff going on with them and the cheating and stuff, and they win, and but it's like the Houston Astros, Houston. I'm gonna let Houston get into my mind. They're like one of the most irrelevant sports cities in the country. If I mean, the Rockets never win anything, and the Astros have only been good the last like 10 years or so, and the Texans are a joke. So it's like it's really hard to introduce Houston into my hatred list. So I left them off. Instead, at 10, I put the New York Jets. And as a Pats fan, it's really kind of hard to hate the Jets because we like dominate the Jets for most of my lifetime. But at the same time, when I was like in high school or middle
Mhm.
school, whatever, there were a couple of years with the Jets, or one year in particular, where they beat us in the playoffs. And it was like the Patriots should have been like Super Bowl contenders that year. So that hurts. At 9, this is the only NBA team that made the cut. And it's not really like I don't really I wasn't alive when the Lakers and Celtics thing was like big, but the Lakers, it's just something about like LeBron playing for the Lakers. I just and the Lakers being like everyone loves to talk about the Lakers. It's like it just bugs me. So I had the Lakers at 9, very lukewarm, 10 and 9. At 8, I have any NFL team that resides in the state of Pennsylvania. So that includes the Steelers and the Eagles. So I have NFL in the state of Pennsylvania. So I have no to the Steelers, no to the Eagles, goodbye. Between Steelers is kind of like the Jets. They haven't really beat the Patriots a lot when it mattered. Um, they snapped their 21 game winning streak in 2004, only for the Patriots to then go there on the road, and Brady had like a flu game and he went off and we bulldozed them. And since then, the Steelers have not occupied a lot of space in people's mind, but they're still fun to hate. Eagles, meanwhile, that same year, we beat them in the Super Bowl in 2004, but they beat us in 2018. And now they're just kind of hanging around. And I don't know about you, but like living in the Northeast, it seems like we get a lot of Pennsylvania transplants in like New
Lot,
England somehow,
lot.
and you end up with a bunch of people who are like Flyer fans and like Eagle fans and Steeler fans, and it's like, what are you doing up here? This is like New England. Um, so that's where that comes from. Number 7, the Florida Panthers. 5 years ago, I would have told you they never occupied my brain space. The last two postseasons, goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Do not want anything to do with them. I used to like Matthew Tkachuk. I'm gonna like him for about 3 days next month when he's playing for Team USA. Absolutely not. That whole team, Sam Bennett, good night, good night, good night. Sasha Barkov, great player, hate him. Like great guy, hate him. Um, 6, I have the New York Giants. I'm surprised they're not higher. The New York Giants took 2 rings off Tom Brady's finger, including the undefeated season, so they had to make this list. That was terrible. The New York Giants, I think, might be the only sports team that's ever made me cry. Um, so no to the New York Giants. Number 5, I have the Montreal Canadiens. It's been a while, it's been like a decade since the rivalry was really turned up. But every time the Bruins go up there and I see those guys, it just makes me want to win and beat them. And the fact that they're now in the playoff contention with the Bruins, I think we only have one more game against Montreal, I think, this year. So that game is going to mean a lot, I'm afraid. So still got that heater turned up now on the Montreal Canadiens. At 4, this is a new one, recency bias. I'm surprised, based on our conversation before we recorded, I'm surprised this team didn't make your list just out of recency bias. But the Kansas City Chiefs, like as a Pats fan, you know what they are? The Chiefs are like, let's say you I don't want to oversimplify the metaphor here, but the Chiefs are like if your ex-girlfriend went on to like marry Jeff Bezos. Like like, or your ex-girlfriend is like married to like Mark Zuckerberg or some rich like billionaire. That's how the
Yeah.
Chiefs feel to like get Pats fan. You're like, oh, they might three-peat. Like we didn't even three-peat. Like I don't, it's like I don't want them to get anywhere near the three-peat. We didn't three-peat, and we were the best dynasty in sports history. So it's like right now when we're recording this episode, I'm like, Chiefs. The Chiefs are everything the Patriots haters said we were, which is the team that gets all the calls, the team that get the media fawns over them, the refs fawn over them, the league fawns over them. 10 years ago yesterday, Tom Brady started getting investigated for deflated footballs. Belichick got fined and we lost draft picks because of cheating scandals. Like the league hated us, people hated us in the league. It feels like the league loves the Chiefs. And so the Patriots are not anywhere close to what the Chiefs are now, unfortunately, in terms of that level. So they're number 4. Number 3, I'm going way off the board, man. I'm going the Camden Hills Windjammers. Dude, I'm telling you, nothing hurt more than being a high school baseball player and having your dead rival beat you 2 years in a row, including to end your high school career.
Yikes.
And it was, dude, it was unlike anything I have ever experienced in sports because I remember clear as day. We had just had our senior awards night, and my team had my senior year. We had a first round bye, and we're doing what a lot of fans were doing last week, which is you watch the preliminary games to see who you're going to be playing next week because you're on a bye. And I got out to my car, pulled up my phone. My parents had, were in the car with me. They were driving. I was 17, and I saw that they had won and that they were going to come play us in 5 days. And I was like, oh damn. they're gonna we have to play them again in the playoffs, and we were the higher seed. And all I could remember was what had happened the year before, and then what had happened 3 years or 2 or 3 years before that. And I'm like, oh no, we're running into it again. And sure enough, they beat us. They beat us. We were staging a comeback. I led off the inning with a walk. I got on base. My run came around to score. We were down by a run. We had the tying run on uh, third, I believe, and the winning run on second, and our best hitter up, and he hit or sorry, the winning run on first, tying run on third, and we were trying to steal second, I believe. And so the guy on first was trying to steal second with one out. Our best hitter up, he hit a line drive right to the second baseman who caught it and doubled up the guy who was trying to steal second at first base. And it was like the worst baseball luck I'd ever seen. Like if that ball is 3 inches over his head, that guy, it's going in the gap, and that guy who's stealing is probably going to come around and score. We're probably going to complete the comeback and win the game. And so from that moment on, I was like, nope, I cannot do this. So number 3 is Camden Hills Windjammers. I'm sorry to any of you out there. I can't bury the hatchet on that game. Number 2 is the New York Yankees. I think that goes without saying as a Red Sox fan. And number 1, the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's hard to hate a team that you beat all the time, but one of these days, the bill's going to come due and they're going to beat us, and it's going to suck. It might even be this year. So, in the playoffs. So, uh, no on them and their stupid little outdoor viewing area and all those guys, and no on their entitlement complex that they have when it comes to hockey. Yeah, I'm out on Toronto Maple Leafs number 1. I'm sorry that was really long-winded and you didn't need the personal history lessons that I kept giving, but I was very emotional about this. Like I went through this, and like 10 through 7 was like whatever, and then you get down there and you're like, ugh. It's just like putting salt on the wound. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Sports hate. I want to hear our listeners. I want you to. I want you to. We're gonna post our lists. I'm gonna post our lineups, our all-time birthday month lineups, and then I'm also gonna do a separate post with our sports hate lists, and I want to hear your sports hate list. Doesn't have to be 10, it could be 5, it could be 3. But I think, tell me if you agree with this or not.
Okay.
When it comes to fandom, you can love your teams, like the
Yeah.
Devils or the Bruins or the Rams or the Pats. But what makes you a sports fan is how you channel your love for some teams versus and including your hatred for others. That's what makes sports fandom amazing. Is like I can not know anything about another person. I don't care who they voted for. I don't care how much money they make. I don't care where they're from. I don't care what language they speak.
Mm.
But if they say, "Oh, I'm all for the Bruins and, screw the Maple Leafs." I'm like, "Yeah, hell yeah. Cheers. High five." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
No.
if
No.
let me do you agree that's what makes sports fandom so unique.
Yeah. No. It is. I mean, it's about having a common love for the game. I mean, it's also just a common. I mean, you have a common hate for something for a team. It makes you even better. I mean, like we talk about Mets and Red Sox fans are
Yeah.
friends. They hate the Yankees together. So like, there's that cool atmosphere here. So it's definitely brings another passion to the sport. I mean, like I feel like you just can't say, "Oh, I like a team," and not have like stake in it, like hating another team. It just doesn't make it as fun. I mean, if I tell people that, I tell them, "Hey, go watch soccer over in Europe. You'll see how passionate they are about sport. I think they're more passionate about their sport,
They
soccer,
are.
than we are here in the States of for any of the big sports we have. Like, I just totally different. Like, they're also harsh. And I think you also got to have a hatred for your team as well, especially when they're doing bad. If you don't have a hatred or anger to like, why does my team suck? Or like, why are these things going on? Then you're not really caring too much. It just shows how much passion you have for the sports.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's what makes sports.
Mm-hmm.
It's what makes sports unique
Yeah.
is that it's tribal, but in like a non like prejudice way.
Yeah. I mean, you're not,
It allows for like nationalism and tribalism, I believe, in a healthy way. Because I think inherent human nature is tribal in nature. Like when in you brought up, soccer in
yeah.
Europe. I mean, sometimes that can cross lines because there's so much like cultural stuff in Europe that, we don't understand as Americans because,
Correct.
it's just different. But like generally speaking, outside of some college rivalries, most pro rivalries in the United States are like have been created within the last 50 years. And so
Correct.
they're relatively new and absent of like weird social undertones. So you can pretty much just leave it to the sports fandom. Whereas a lot of stuff in like Europe, that goes back like centuries. And
Correct.
so in America and Canada, we're lucky where like we can sort of leave it at sports and do it in a healthy way. So like yeah, like I hate the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I have family that's Toronto Maple Leaf fans and you know what, that's fine. Um and I hate the Yankees, but like one of our best friends is a Yankee fan and we can like get over that. So it's like because it's just about sports. Um and so I do think that's what makes sports different and healthy and fun. And I think doing this podcast and focusing on hockey is probably the second closest thing in America to European soccer in terms of the fan bases because of I think college football is really close to that
Mm-hmm.
in the United States, but I think the NHL is probably closer than the other three in that regard because of the fact that it's played in the winter, it's played indoors, it's played in cold areas where there's not a lot else to do, and it's played amongst kids that a lot of these Canadian kids grew up. They grew up to get playing against each other from the time they were like 9 or 10, and then that breeds rivalries, and then that breeds tribalism among fans. And so I think that's what makes hockey unique. I'll give you the last word.
Oh gosh. Last word. I mean, I think next time maybe we should instead of talk about teams, talk about fan bases by location or overall teams because I think that'd be a interesting list to talk about versus just one single team. What if it's multiple teams from an area?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I think like this weekend we've got the Bills going to play Kansas City in the AFC title game.
Mm,
I mean, the Bills are a great example of their hockey team isn't that good, but their football team is really good, and that fan base is intense.
correct.
Those guys travel. When I was on a cruise last year, you saw Bills fans everywhere. They love to tell you they like the Bills. And so that's a good example right there that we can talk about for sure. Well, I hope you guys like the episode. Like I said, I'm going to post some of the stuff. If you haven't already, you can go check it out at Homefield Pod on Instagram. I'll be sure to tag Kyle and me as well in those posts. But if you haven't subscribed already, you can also subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. But until next time, when we do discuss further things, we'll see if the Bruins are still in the playoff mix. He's Kyle Diesel. I'm Will Highland. This has been Odd Man Rush.